Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. I'm writing this on my phone, so bear with me if it's a bit off. So, last night, my wife, Emily, and I decided to take it easy. After we had dinner, she went into the living room to watch some shows, and I ended up flipping between the soccer game and getting a few things done that I had planned. Before long, she cracked open a couple bottles of wine. By midnight, I went to check on her, and she was passed out on the couch. I was about to pick her up and take her to bed when her Apple Watch buzzed, and a message popped up on the screen. It said something like, "Haha, I can't do that, my name would knock 7 shades of crap out of me, tongue sticking out. I had no idea what that meant, so I tapped on the message, and it was a conversation between Emily and a guy I know. Now, I wouldn't call him a close friend, but he's someone I've known for years, played soccer with, had drinks with, and just hung out since we were teenagers. We used to joke around and call him Jacket Guy, because back in our younger days, whenever we got into fights, he was always the one left holding everyone's jackets while the rest of us threw down. So, I opened up the chat on her watch, and I scrolled to the top. From what I could see, it was him who messaged her first, unless she deleted something. There was a lot of flirting and playful stuff going on, but nothing that really screamed cheating. But then I get to the messages from last night, and that's when I couldn't believe my eyes. She was drunk and practically begging him for sex. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I'll paraphrase, but it was something like how she'd always wanted him, how no one would ever find out if they did something, and the part that killed me, the last message, she said she was great at keeping secrets. I kept trying to scroll through the watch, but I couldn't find anything else, and I don't know her phone's passcode. I moved her to the bed, then just sat in the kitchen, stunned, until I eventually fell asleep. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. for work, but when I got into my van, I just couldn't do it. I slumped down behind the wheel, feeling like I was suffocating. So I went back into the house, grabbed a half-empty bottle of vodka, filled it up with soda, and walked out to the woods near the old railway line we live next to. I walked for about half the length of it, just trying to clear my head. Now I'm sitting under a bridge, feeling like a damn troll, fuming over everything. If you were standing a mile away, you'd probably see steam coming out of my ears. So what do? I don't even want to look at her. After reading that, I feel like all the love I had for her just disappeared. It's like she stabbed me right in the heart. Honestly, I just want to ghost her, just cut her out completely. If I could, I'd never speak to her again. The part that really got to me was the great at keeping secrets line, like, who the hell are you now? It just feels like the whole thing's so fake. I'm wondering how deep this really goes, but at the same time, I don't know if I want to know. Right now I feel numb. It's like my whole world's been turned upside down. I've never felt so betrayed in my life. I gave so much to this relationship, not just as her partner, but as a person. I loved her, and I thought she was a good person, someone with the same kind of values I had. To find out that she's been lying and doing this behind my back, it's like I've been tricked into trusting a snake. I feel like a worse person for being involved with her. It's like finding out that someone you admired is a criminal or a creep, someone you thought was good, and now, you can't trust anything anymore. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. Here's the thing, our house is owned by my parents, who moved to a retirement village 6 years ago, and we moved in. The place will be passed down to me when they're gone, but that won't be for a long time, hopefully. They didn't want to deal with the upkeep, so when we do divorce, Emily won't be getting her hands on it. So what now? I'm honestly thinking of not saying a word to her and just throwing her out. While I was walking earlier, I even thought about asking my buddy who's a locksmith to come change the locks quietly. I could make up some story about the door breaking or something, she wouldn't care, as long as I'm there. After he changes the locks, I'd lock the front door, tell her to go check something out back, and when she's out, I'd lock her out. It sounds childish, I know, but right now, I'm just so angry. I'm staring at this bottle, and it feels like my whole life's falling apart. As for that so-called friend of mine, There's no doubt in my mind he was involved in something here. I'm sure I never would have found out if I hadn't seen those messages. I'll be seeing him soon enough. He's no longer the guy holding jackets. He'll be the one holding his face when I'm done with him. Wednesday, October 28, 2020. First off, thanks to everyone who reached out to me after my last post. I really appreciated the support. So, after I wrote the first update and was a complete mess, 2 dog walkers came over to check on me. They must have noticed something wasn't right. I told them everything, and one of them said something that stuck with me. "Son, the worst thing you can do right now is drink. It'll just make things worse." I'm really grateful she said that because I was heading down a dark path. I tossed the vodka, called up a friend, and he said I could crash at his place for a bit to clear my head. He wasn't home, but he told me where the spare key was. We live in a small town with only about 15,000 people, and his house wasn't far, so I went there, plopped on his couch, and just tried to breathe. All morning, I was getting texts and calls from Emily, asking where I was and why my work van was still in the driveway. I texted her back saying there was an issue with the engine, so I got a lift into work. She bought that excuse, just texting back. Okay. When my friend got back from work around 5 p.m., I told him everything that had happened, and I asked for his advice. I also told him to keep quiet about Jacket Guy, for now, as I didn't want Emily finding out I knew about him yet. I'll deal with him later. I'll make sure everyone knows what a little rat he is, but right now, hitting him doesn't do me any good. And for those of you saying he didn't do anything wrong, that's bullshit. He messaged my wife first, and the conversation was full of flirting. Why was he even messaging her in the first place? He barely knows her. Look, I have no problem with adults talking, but they weren't close, and from what I saw, it was flirtatious from the get-go. My friend talked me down a bit, convincing me to keep a low profile, do some digging, and at the same time, talk to a lawyer to understand my options. I got that ball rolling today. He drove me home around 6 p.m., and by that point, I was absolutely exhausted. The adrenaline from the whole day had worn off, and I was drained. As soon as I stepped through the door, I could tell something was off. Emily was right there, asking me a bunch of questions about work. I asked her why she even cared, and she said she noticed my big thermos and lunch bag were still in the front passenger seat of the van, and that something was off today. She could just feel it. I almost lied, but I was too tired to keep up the act. I was done pretending, so I told her exactly what was going on. I said when I was putting her drunk ass to bed last night, her watch buzzed, and I read the message. I read them all. I told her I saw everything, and she's a disgusting cheat, and I didn't want anything to do with her. The look on her face went from being all-powerful with her arms crossed to looking like a scared little girl in an instant. She tried to defend herself, saying she was drunk, vulnerable, had never done anything like that before, and that it didn't mean anything, that she'd never go through with it. Her excuses were straight out of the playbook. The only thing she didn't try was blaming me, which I think she knew would have made me kick her straight out the door. I told her I wanted a divorce, and she needed to be out of the house in a month. I also told her she was moving to the spare room. Since then, I've basically been ignoring her. I just shake my head when she starts talking. I don't want to hear it. She slept in the spare room last night, and I haven't spoken to her or texted her today. If I'm lucky, maybe she'll be gone when I get back from work, but I doubt it. As for getting her out, I told my parents what's been going on, and my mom was insistent that I wasn't just throwing her out onto the streets. She and Emily are close, and they've been tight ever since we got together. My mom kept saying it was a mistake, that we should work it out like adults, and that Emily didn't actually do anything, just said some things. She completely sided with Emily, and I couldn't believe it. Is my mom going to mess this up for me? Can she really tell me I can't ask her to leave if she's against it? This house is mine when my parents pass, and I did nothing wrong, so I'm not leaving. It's probably going to turn into a full-blown battle. I managed to get an appointment with a divorce lawyer for next week, so I'll be going there to talk about my options. Until then, I'm just going to keep ignoring Emily. I'm sure she's not going to admit anything else, but I'll never know if she was just a really good liar or if she was playing him to get him on her side for the affair. Sorry about the delay in the update. I'm just getting the chance to write it now, after finishing work. Guess it's back to the crazy house. Monday, November 16th. Hey everyone, I thought I'd give you all an update since I've been getting a lot of personal messages asking for one. It's been 20 days since I found out that my wife was trying to cheat on me with my friend, and things have become a nightmare. I gave her a month to move out, and she's been sleeping in the spare room, but it's clear she doesn't have any intention of leaving. She's been talking to my mom, and I think that's influencing her decision. At this point, she doesn't have anywhere to go, but that's not my issue. I've seen my divorce lawyer multiple times and have started the process of drawing up divorce papers. I also opened my own bank account and took half of the money from our joint account. The atmosphere at home is tense. The living room has turned into a no-man's land where we both avoid spending time. We mostly stay in our separate rooms, and I've been working late on purpose to avoid her. I had been completely ignoring her, but after reading about the 180 method, I started to implement it and have been civil, though still a little cold. I'm glad I did this because, honestly, I was starting to feel like a monster for refusing to acknowledge her. It wasn't the right way to go about it, and I felt like I was the one in the wrong instead of her. The one time I broke from the 180 was when I walked into the bathroom last week and found her sitting on the floor, crying by the bathtub. I helped her up and instinctively hugged her. It wasn't a loving embrace though, it was more of a there kind of hug. The sad thing is, I'm so suspicious of her now that I wouldn't be surprised if she was just putting on a performance, hoping I'd walk in. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but in this environment, it feels like nothing is genuine. She keeps saying she'll do anything to save the marriage and prove it was all a mistake. To test her, I brought up the idea of a lie detector test. I don't actually plan on getting one done, I just wanted to see how she'd react. She was all for it, until a few hours later when she came back, tablet in hand, telling me how inaccurate they are, how anxiety and nervousness can mess with the results, especially since she has an anxiety disorder. I just laughed at that. It wasn't a normal laugh either, it started as a cackle and ended in a childish giggle. She says she'll do anything to save the marriage, but not take a lie detector test? Yeah, okay. Honestly, though, it doesn't matter. As I said in my first post, any love I had for her disappeared the moment I read those messages. I don't see her as my true love anymore, or as the person I trusted with my life. I just see someone I need to get rid of before she stinks up the place anymore. Jacket Guy has become the joke of the town since I exposed him to our friends. It's safe to say he has no friends left and has been completely shut out. I tried calling him a few times, but he just ignored me and blocked my number. Screw that little rat. I hope whatever he got out of it was worth losing everything. I've talked to my mom about all this, and during a heated argument, I asked her why she was taking my wife's side. Was there something she wasn't telling me? Did she want us to just pretend nothing happened and live like roommates? My mom said she's always seen my wife as the daughter she never had, especially since she had a stillborn daughter before I was born, and it's haunted her. So, she latched onto my wife, and they've had a close bond ever since we got together. My wife doesn't have much family, and most of her friends have their own busy lives, so if I throw her out, she'd be all alone, especially during a pandemic. My mom thinks that's unacceptable. She tried to get me to compromise, saying maybe in 3 or 4 months, we could reevaluate things and see where we're at. She also suggested couples counseling. I'm not doing that. The thought of spending Christmas under the same roof as my wife makes me sick. She'll want to make it perfect, just like every other year, and it'll turn into another shit show. My dad, God love him, has never been much of a talker. He's always been there, quiet and proud but timid. My mom's word has always been the most important in our house. Some people on here have told me that I'm being selfish, saying it's not my house, and I don't have the right to make demands. But it's come down to a choice between my wife and me for my parents. If things get worse, I'm ready to walk out and never come back. I'm done with this house. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror with some respect. Someone in this mess has to keep their word. If I leave, my friend has offered me a place to stay for a while until I get things sorted. But if I leave, I'm done with my parents. I'll never speak to them again. They'll probably see it as me giving up on them, as me walking away without trying to fix things first. But to me, it's them choosing a woman who broke my heart over their own son. What will happen when I'm gone? Will she just stay there alone? My parents taking care of her while I'm out on my own? A little more about the house. My parents let us move in a year after our wedding as a belated wedding gift, though that was just the story they told us. They were planning on moving out and moving us in all along. I've spent tens of thousands on it over the years, but that's neither here nor there. Sometimes I fantasize about leaving everything behind, going somewhere new and starting fresh. But I've lived in this town my whole life. It's all I know. Am I being too harsh? I'm literally ready to cut my parents out of my life, but I feel torn. Why do I have to lose everything and everyone? I've tried to be good, and I always thought good things happen to good people. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe I deserve everything that's coming. Wednesday, December 2nd. Well, I officially don't call that house home anymore. I saw on the calendar that my wife had an ophthalmologist appointment this morning, so I knew she'd be out for a few hours. I decided that was the perfect chance to gather my things and move out, which is exactly what I did. Once I had everything packed and sorted, I left the house keys on the kitchen table, along with the divorce papers from my lawyer that I got last week. Then I was on my way. I blocked both my wife and my mom's numbers, and from now on, any communication with my wife will go through my lawyer. For now, I'm staying with a friend for a week or two, but I'm hoping to be settled into a rental before Christmas. I haven't spoken to my parents in a few weeks. The last time we communicated was through text. I tried to explain to my mom in detail just how hurtful the things my wife said to my friend were, how the whole "I'm good at keeping secrets" comment made me lose any trust in her. My mom texted back saying she couldn't talk to me when I was in this state and suggested I cool off. She tried calling me a few days ago, but I ignored the call, and as of today, I blocked her number too. Honestly, I feel so let down by my parents. Right now, it feels worse than what my wife did to me. I always thought that in tough times, you turn to your family for support, for them to be your rock when you're the one who's been wrong. Instead, my parents have made me feel like the one in the wrong, like I'm overreacting, and like I'm the one tearing the family apart. But that's not the case. All I asked from them was to help me by kicking my cheating wife out, and they chose her over me. My dad had a chance to stand up for me, but he didn't. I guess you live with the choices you make. I've seen some of the comments on here from my previous posts, and people have said I gave up too easily, that I was looking for a way out, or that I didn't love my wife enough to try and save the marriage. But that's just not true. I loved my wife more than anything, and I was crushed when I found out what she was doing. I believe we all have boundaries, and once those boundaries are crossed, things change forever. When I read those awful texts, something inside me snapped. It was like waking up from a spell in a movie, and from that moment on, I was no longer in love with her. Anything done after that would have just been delaying the inevitable. I'll be honest, I'm curious to see how things play out now that I'm gone. Will my parents continue to support her, knowing that it's cost them their relationship with me? As for me, I've been thinking about traveling. My wife hated flying, so we never went abroad for vacations. We mostly stuck to places like Newquay and Torquay and Cornwall and Devon, but I'd love to travel somewhere new. The last time I went abroad was when I was 20, for a trip to Greece with friends, so that was 13 years ago. I'm really interested in seeing America, so once the pandemic settles down, I'm definitely looking into visiting the States. Thanks. Goodbye. Wednesday, May 26, 2021. It's been over 7 months since I first posted here, and honestly, I thought I was done. I thought I didn't need any more advice or input. I had made my decisions and acted on them. But today, I got a phone call that pulled me right back into all of this. I've moved about 15 miles away, changed my number, and I'm still in the middle of divorcing my wife. She's completely ignored the requests from my lawyer to cooperate, which has really slowed everything down. Now we're in the process of trying to get the courts to serve her with divorce papers. If she continues to ignore the process, I can proceed with the divorce without her involvement. This morning at work, I got a call from my friend telling me that my dad was trying to reach me because my mom's been sick. He asked if it was okay for my dad to have my number. I said it was fine, and my dad called soon after, telling me that my mom's in the hospital. She's stable, but it doesn't sound good. Of course, I was shocked. It had been so long since I'd heard from my dad, and hearing his voice was the most emotional I've ever heard him. He told me that my mom really wanted to see me, and asked if I'd meet him at the hospital tonight to visit her. I agreed, and arranged to meet him outside the hospital. I ended up leaving work early because I couldn't focus, and now I'm sitting here at home, climbing the walls wondering if I've made the right choice. Am I about to walk back into the same mess I left behind? I feel so nervous, like I'm walking blindfolded into a burning building, having no idea where the exits are. Why does she want to see me now? Has something changed? Unless she's had a complete personality shift, I highly doubt it. Will my wife be there? I have no interest in seeing her. I'm still angry about what happened with them and how they took my cheating wife's side over mine. I've been wrestling with myself about whether I should even go, but in the end, I decided I had to go for closure. If something happens and I don't go, I know I'd regret it. But I'm still feeling a bit conflicted. What do you think? How would you handle this? Saturday, May 29th. Sorry for the late update. The last few days have been a lot, and I've needed some time to digest everything that happened and how I feel about it. I did go to the hospital on Wednesday night after a lot of back and forth in my head. I almost backed out at the last minute because I was so nervous, but I knew if I didn't go, I'd always wonder what might have happened. So I pushed through. When I drove into the hospital parking lot, I felt like I was in a surreal movie scene, expecting my wife to jump out from behind a tree or something. I met my dad at the entrance, and it was awkward. He tried to hug me, but I said no. I told him that if my wife was anywhere nearby, I was turning around and leaving. He assured me she wasn't there, so we made our way to the ward where my mom was. When I saw my mom, I nearly had a heart attack. She looked completely different, frail and battered. She had a severe black eye, a lot of bruising, and her face was swollen and discolored from the fall she had. She broke 2 ribs, shattered her elbow, and hit her head hard. Seeing her in that state was a shock, but she seemed to perk up a little when she saw me. She said how much she'd missed me and that she wasn't sure she'd ever see me again. I told her if she really wanted to contact me, she could have tried harder. We talked for a bit about what happened. She was down for hours before my dad found her, and how she wanted to get back to normal and fix things with me. I brought up my wife and asked if she was still living in the house. My mom admitted she was, and I could see my dad getting uncomfortable. I couldn't help but look away in disgust. My mom started saying how lost my wife was without me and how she wasn't doing well. That was the moment I realized nothing had changed. She wasn't having an epiphany or seeing things from a new perspective. She just wanted everything back to how it was, status quo. She told me that the house was always going to be my home, but I told her I didn't want it anymore. It doesn't mean anything to me. All it holds are bad memories. I stayed for less than an hour. When I left, I told her if I wanted to contact her again, I would, but not to expect me to call any time soon. My dad asked if I'd stay in touch with him, and I said I would. Whether that was right or wrong, only time will tell. When I got home, my emotions were all over the place, sadness, anger, confusion. But I'm glad I went. I couldn't help but think about my wife and what we once had. It'll never not hurt. Looking back at everything that's happened in the last 7 months, it still feels unreal. The speed at which everything fell apart was like something out of a movie. I didn't see the signs or piece it together. I just happened to catch a glimpse of something on her watch, and that shattered my life. It's hard to believe that this is my life now. I know, deep down, that it wasn't the first time. I know what she is now. I feel no love for her, only contempt. It feels like she stole the best years of my life, and when I think about the good times, they feel like someone else's memories, not mine. A friend suggested I see a therapist to help process everything. He said if I don't, it could fundamentally change who I am and how I approach relationships in the future. I think I'll take his advice, because I do feel broken inside. The last 7 months have been the hardest of my life, but at least now I know the truth. I just wish it hadn't come this way, but you can't control how someone betrays you. You just have to learn from it. I remember reading about how loyalty is one of the most undervalued traits, and now I see it. It's easy to overlook because you don't know if someone's loyal to you until they're not. I never thought I'd experience something like this, but now, more than ever, I understand how crucial loyalty is. Tuesday, July 20th. Hey everyone, I wanted to update you on where I am now, since a lot has changed over the past few months. First off, I'm almost at the end of my divorce process. My wife has signed the papers and sent them over to my lawyer, so now it's just a matter of wrapping up the last steps. She reached out through my dad to apologize for holding me back. She said she tried to fix things, but now understands it's time to move on for her own well-being. I'm thankful that she finally came to her senses. She doesn't want anything from the divorce and plans to move out once she's able to get on her feet. I'm fine with that. As for my mom, I haven't spoken to her yet, but my dad says she's doing much better since she left the hospital, and is slowly getting back to normal. I don't know what the future holds with them, but I told my dad that if the house is going to be mine, I'd like to get it in my name now to secure my future. After that, maybe we can start working on rebuilding our relationship, though I'm not holding my breath. My real battle is inside my own head. The mind is both amazing and terrifying. To put it simply, I can still remember the taste of truffles I had when I was 5 and threw up. That memory is still with me after all these years, which is why I don't want to carry all these feelings from the past into the next 30 years. I don't want to become one of those older people who've been crushed by life's pain and let it turn them bitter. I want to let this pain go before it consumes me. I've started therapy and have had some sessions with a psychiatrist, both over the phone and in person. It's been helpful to talk openly about everything, even if just for a short time. One thing my psychiatrist said really stuck with me. I was lamenting about my best years being behind me, and she told me, "Your best years are the years you've got left." It really made me think. The past is gone and only exists in our memories, but the present is real, and it's up to me how I make the most of it. On a positive note, I'm finally making progress on something I've wanted to do for a while. I'm traveling. My friend and I are planning a trip to New York in October. I've always wanted to see the city in the fall, especially after watching You've Got Mail. I'm looking forward to it so much. This is just the start of my travels. I want my 30s to be full of memories from adventures abroad, and for the first time in a long while, I'm waking up with hope and excitement for the future. Wednesday, October 27th. It's been a year since my first post on Reddit, and I think now is a good time to give one final update. First off, I'm officially divorced. It feels like a massive weight has been lifted, but also like I've closed the chapter on a third of my life. About a month ago, I ran into my ex-wife for the first time since December. We locked eyes for a moment, and I could feel this deep sadness wash over me. Do I miss her? No. But I miss the person I thought she was. The person I saw is long gone, if she was ever really that person at all. I don't wish her harm, though. I just refuse to carry any hate in my heart anymore. Holding on to that only hurts me in the long run. I also found out from my friend's girlfriend that she thought she saw my ex outside a pub with another guy a couple of years ago. She never told me because she wasn't sure it was her, but if I'd known then, it might have saved me a lot of heartache. That frustrates me, but at least I know now why I never liked her. I was excited about my trip to New York, but the travel ban for fully vaccinated travelers between the USA and UK was lifted too late for my October plans. My friend can't get time off work now, so I might have to go alone. I'm still determined to go, just not when I originally planned. This pandemic has thrown plenty of curveballs, but I'll get there eventually. This is just the start of my travel journey, after all. When it comes to my parents, I feel nothing but apathy. My dad has been trying to rebuild our relationship, but I just don't care anymore. I think I was angry before and wanted control, but now I don't care about the house. It doesn't matter to me anymore, and it won't change anything about the past. The decisions they made have consequences, and I'm done with trying to fix it. If anyone is thinking about forgiving a cheater, don't. It's just not worth it. You're not going to change them. After everything I've been through and everything I've read about infidelity, I can say with certainty that staying in a relationship with someone who has betrayed you is a mistake. You might be holding on to hope, but that fight is a losing battle. At the beginning of this year, I had a terrifying experience when I cut my leg and nearly ended up with sepsis. When I thought I might die, I stopped being afraid. Accepting that I might not make it was the thing that calmed me down. The same applies to betrayal. Sometimes you have to accept that what you had is over. It's gone, and no amount of fighting is going to bring it back. It's a hard truth, but it's the only one that leads to peace. As Tyler Durden from Fight Club says, it's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. And in some ways, I feel like I've lost everything. But in other ways, that loss has given me the freedom to start over and find something better. It's strange, but writing about all of this has helped me more than I ever thought it would. I've started to let it all out, and I think that's been key in helping me see the bigger picture. I've learned not to bottle things up anymore. Looking back, I can pinpoint a few moments where I could have gone down a very dark path. If I hadn't reached out for help when I did, who knows where I would be right now. I might have ended up in a much worse place, and that scares me. But I'm grateful that I didn't go down that road. Finally, a year ago, I felt like a worse person than I was yesterday. But after everything that's happened, I feel like a stronger one. Thanks for reading my story.